watching or listening to The Climb. My name is John Sarakis, and this is produced by the Digital Mastermind. The Digital Mastermind is a group of agency owners, business leaders, technologists, marketers that all get together to solve the industry's top problems. So today we have a different topic, but something that has been in the zeitgeist on the minds of lots of others, and that is mental health. It's something that, of course, we talk about. You're hearing it in the media, but we don't really accept it, right? It's just something that it feels good and we might donate, a few dollars to. But at the end of the day, it's something that it affects all of us. You can just look up the number of celebrities and the number of people, whether it's Abraham Lincoln or even Beethoven, these great achievers that either struggled with depression or bipolar disorder. So all of us are always dealing with something at one time, and most of us are just doing the best we can with whatever it is that we have. But it's us looking at others and working with others to figure out how we can work better together. And it comes down to that accepting and that understanding. And today we had a very special guest come on to the show, and she was super brave and courageous. And I don't use those words lightly, like a soccer team losing a game and calling them a hero. I really mean those words. Because she was very open about her situation, as well as, kind of her thoughts around it. And then whether you're a business owner, agency owner, or any type, it's hard and it's lonely at the top sometimes, and it's difficult. So I think it's important for us to understand what it is that she's saying, as well as understand that those are around us and help out however we can. Because asking the question, how are you, is just something we passively say, where it's good as a response, or I'm well, and there might be something deeper. So I think conversations like this, and in the future, when that question is asked, how are you, it won't just be some optimistic, positive answer that we just give off the flip of the cuff, for pleasantries. It'll be a really deep question that'll open up a deeper conversation where you'll actually get into somebody's world and truly understand how it is that they are. But before we get into that interview, Dave, why don't you come out here?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. Good to see you. It's a good color on it.
Thank you.
So, mental health.
Very important. Very tough to talk about. Every time I think about it, I think that's a journey people have to figure out for themselves and find out, how to be aware of it and how to solve it for themselves. I kind of stumbled upon, I loved your little monologue there, and I was thinking about what are some of the best tips that I came up with, and what I really realized is, I used to be a partner in a landscaping company.
Mm-hmm.
And people always used to go, oh, marketing and application development and landscaping, how does that go? And I would always tell them it was a great use of a completely different part of my brain. Software and apps and marketing and online, digital. And then when I'd have to work on my other business, it was, how do I talk to people? How do I market locally? How do I get the lawnmowers, to the right part of town? Like, it was completely different thinking, and it was refreshing and relaxing to change the problems I was thinking about. And I think that helped with my, mental wellness.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that will find some things that work organically, but there's no shortage of tools and therapies that people can use. And I think everybody's journey is going to be one for themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I know I've spoke to therapists. I haven't had good experiences. Like, literally one guy I'm speaking with, the entire time he's like bringing up his mother, and I'm like, and it was my first time going to therapy. I was like, maybe this is what it's supposed to be like. So I sit through the whole session, and then I pay afterward. It's not something that's covered by insurance. And granted, anybody listening, it may be covered by your insurance, so it's something that you should check out. And then I told the friend that recommended, like, hey, maybe you should go speak to somebody. It's always worked for me. And I told him, and he's like, what? He's like, no, dude, you got to find somebody else. I found somebody else. It wasn't nearly as bad as that, but it just didn't work for me. But I know other things that have. There's like personal, development. There's groups, there's centers, and of course, educating yourself on it. I think just taking some positive actions is what you need to do. Medications are for some people, right? Whether it's psychiatry or psychology or cognitive therapy, figuring out what works. But I think the other thing too is people actually have to realize who it is that they are, what do they want, what are their values, who are the people that you're surrounding yourself with, what are you consuming. We've talked about this, right? It's you are what you eat. You are with the news that you're consuming. Your business, do you have toxic employees? Do you have toxic business partners? I mean, really just taking a mindful approach to your life can really have a huge benefit based on where it is that you want to go. And
stop lying to yourself. You have to be honest. You can't live in a pretend world. And if you're sitting there lying to yourself, knowing you're lying to yourself, you're not going to find the solution. You're just going to double down on it. Yeah.
And also the work. You and I had a discussion the other day. Marketing is tough work. All the time. You're literally getting, you're gambling with concepts and ideas, right? And trying to get the data so you can continually optimize those. And you can work with clients that will treat you like the abused spouse in a relationship. It's just, there's things that just have to change, and you have to look at them a specific way and really set up your boundaries so you can protect yourself.
Yeah, and knowing your ebbs and flows, like knowing your triggers, knowing how to reset yourself. So one of my things that I just love doing, like I guess my therapy, is sitting in the backyard, drinking some wine, and talking with close friends about like real stuff, you know, and that really centers me. You know, I get to connect with somebody else. I get to, you know, talk about real issues, not surface stuff. And and that's my recentering.
Conversations that almost stoke debate. Yeah. Those are good conversations. Those are deeper conversations. That's what I was getting at the top of the show. Just not this very surface level pleasantry. Just get real, be authentic, be genuine, and the chips are going to fall. It doesn't give you permission to be a jerk or a prick and just say things that are going to be hurtful to others. Just just really share from inside. Right. And whether it's sales or whether it's your friendships or relationships, they're going to get stronger based on that information.
Another thing that I, really enjoy lately, and this is, excuse me, a new thing, is gardening. I don't know what triggered it for me, but I just got into it. I'll tell you what it was. I got a farm box. I get a box of food that gets delivered to my home every 2 weeks, and we got these tomatoes in it. And these tomatoes were like tomatoes I've never tasted before. I mean, they're so damn good. And I was like, I've got to grow these. So I just took one of them, squeezed it in some dirt, shoved it in the ground, and it grew. And I was shocked. I was like, what? It actually grew into a really big tomato plant. And I was producing these really delicious tomatoes. And so I was like, I got to do more of this. So started getting into watching gardening videos on YouTube. And man, as it turned into a hobby that just is so awesome. Like this past weekend, the wife and I actually did a bunch of work just to lay stones all around our garden to create walking paths.
Cool.
And then I'm sitting there going, this is what English gardening people are probably all about. It's like you're creating a space to go meditate.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not meditating, but you're creating a space to be your space. And that's what creating a garden is. And I'm all about it now.
No, I love the way that you put that. And David Ogilvy, one of the advertising greats, he was an avid gardener and farmer. So I know others that have taken pleasure from that. Golf is where my mind went, is not relaxed. Half the time it's relaxing. The other half the time you want to wrap your clubs around the nearest oak tree. Mm-hmm. So I think that is good advice for someone to find something that is, because that's like Zen-like. That's like working on a car or a motorcycle. You're seldomly going to get frustrated in that. So I think it's a peaceful activity others could employ.
Yeah. And like this past weekend, I worked hard in the garden, and then I got to sit back and drink a glass of wine and just soak in my hard work. And what a great feedback loop that is.
Yeah. It's also worth noting that wine doesn't work for everybody to relax.
Well, definitely got to find you something. I mean, everyone's got their own thing, and but you have to find it. And if you don't know what that is, I guess that's what's going to lead people to get frustrated and get into a dark space.
I also
because
think it's a separation of identity, right? You don't identify with the performance of your garden, right? It doesn't matter. It's just something that you enjoy doing for the most part, right?
I don't know, my original tomato plant died this weekend, or at least let me put it this way. I discovered that it died a long time ago, but I never really I couldn't connect the vines. And so this past weekend, I actually traced them all back, and I'm like, huh, it's been dead for a while now. It was so sad.
So that's like losing a friend, though, or something.
Yeah.
It sounds like you lost like a pet, right? And
Is the
yeah,
source.
yeah. And I think the point that I was trying to make is like in our professional careers, like we have to separate our identity from our performance. But at the end of the day, our performance is so ingrained in a lot of what it is that we're doing, especially as business owners. But I think in your hobbies, like granted, identifying as a great gardener is not something that you're doing yet. You might aspire to one day, but you're just looking for the enjoyment of the activity. That's the zen. That's the focus zone, the flow that you get into. And I think it's important for people to have those, right? They mentioned other things like play, right? We don't play enough, and that's why kids have so much enjoyment. You don't identify as the player. It's just something that you do.
A quote that I heard in church that I think is really applicable here is you can't put your purpose in another person. You can't put your purpose in a thing. You can't put your purpose in a job. You can't put your purpose in a sports team or anything, because they will eventually let you down. They will eventually disappear. They will eventually go away. You can't put your purpose in something external. You need to put your purpose in yourself and be comfortable with that. And, through that means like, I can't put my identity in the garden, just like you were saying, because if there's a frost and my garden dies, then, what happens to me? Your jobs, they come and go, businesses come and go. That's not who you are. And so if your mental space is connected to that, you're setting yourself up for a fall in the future.
Yep, I agree. And on that note, please enjoy this episode where we interview Jennifer Denney, who is also a longtime DMG member. She's a friend. She's a great person. Please go ahead and let us know what you think. Like, share, comments. We're also going to throw some stuff in the show notes. And if you're interested in joining the Digital Mastermind yourself, please go ahead and shoot me an email, Jon at digitalmastermind.com. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Hi, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy talking with you.
Likewise. So I would like to start with your climb. How did you get here?
So I feel like this is a winded story, but a good story. So I started, I would say my career kind of started graduating from college, and I got a degree in psychology with a concentration of neuropsychology. Fun fact for you, I've actually done brain surgery on rats, so I can check that box. And I got that degree, and I thought I wanted to be a pharmaceutical rep. I saw how much money they were making, and I was working at a mental institution, and they were coming in and out, and I was like, yeah, I could do that. You talk about crazy times now with digital marketing. Working in a mental institution will give you a whole nother level of crazy. So, I was at this career fair, and I was interviewing to work at Lilly as a pharmaceutical rep. And I had this practice interview with a little company called Yellow Book. And that's really where my marketing career started. I was offered a job at Eli Lilly, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the country. And I said, I'm going to try this Yellow Book thing. So I went into Yellow Pages at the beginning stages of that's not cool anymore. That was back in like 2008. And, that's when online marketing really took off. And I was managing 28 people and 10.5 million in marketing dollars as they transitioned from Yellow Pages to digital marketing. And it was a pretty fun ride. But I left that company because I saw that they were really doing an injustice to the small business owner. They were just trying to sell them packages, and probably to no fault of their own, they couldn't figure out where the market was going. They knew yellow pages were dead, but they couldn't figure out where it was going. But in my mind, I knew exactly where it was going. It was going towards digital marketing. So I left that company and I started at a smaller boutique type digital marketing agency where I was selling for them. And, that was great because we were doing like real digital marketing, but I didn't last long because I sold huge digital marketing program and they said they didn't need me anymore. So I did too good of a job. And I really realized like, what was possible. And it was this like light bulb of, well, heck, I just sold this for this boutique type digital marketing agency. Maybe I need to own my own. And I kind of put that aside and decided to make this kind of major move where I took a 50% pay cut. I got out of actually selling and I went and worked at another digital marketing agency as a client success manager. And I went from managing 28 people and 10.5 million to, hey, Jennifer, can you fill the water cooler? Yeah,
Mm,
I can do that.
mm.
And so I learned like about the grit of like keeping my head down, and I learned as much as I possibly could at that agency. And within a year and a half, I took the plunge and I opened Elevated Marketing Solutions. Super scary, but huge payoff. I'm into it 5 years from now, and I'm just wondering why I didn't do this sooner. Um, we really focus on ads more than anything, but at the heart of it, we really feel that every data point has a story to tell, and it's our job to find that data and, come up with solutions that are unique to your business and strategies that will help you grow. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
I like it. No, and I appreciate that. So taking a 50% pay cut, that's huge.
Yeah.
But did you just know that, like, hey, this has to happen? Like, what was that? Like, tell me what you were going through to make that decision, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs do, but I think it's very interesting that.
Yeah. Um, it was one of those like, I want this. Like, I really want to do actual digital marketing. And I had been in sales up to that point in my career, and I was tired of sales. And I wanted to try something different. But, I was the breadwinner 3 times over. So for me to make that decision, I had to bring my family along with me. And at the time, I think they probably weren't real happy with that.
Yeah.
But looking back now, had I not made that decision, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So, it was tough, but I guess I had to believe in myself, which has been a challenge of mine.
If I was to ask what your biggest challenge has been, yeah, over your climb, what would you say that is?
Believing that I, Jennifer Denney, can make something happen. Like, I always got this little person in my head that's like, "You're not good enough yet. You can't do this yet." That's my biggest challenge.
And how do you combat that voice? Like, how do you silence it, turn the volume down? Because I guess it's always there, right?
Yeah, it's always there, and it took me a while to really understand how to silence that voice, but I think if you understand where it's coming from, then you can get better at addressing it. So, I would consider myself a high functioning individual. I like to be challenged constantly. So as soon as I could click and understand That's why you're always feeling like you're not good enough because you're always challenging yourself and you're always putting yourself in positions that maybe you shouldn't be at yet, but it's going to get you to the next level.
So, tell me about? Well, I guess we'll get personal here because it's a really personal thing. Like, so tell me about like your parents. Like, were they high achievers? High, uh,
Uh, yeah and no. Like my mom was, my mom was the breadwinner too. And so you go back to that time period and being the breadwinner in the 70s and being a female was not heard of.
right, super uncommon.
Yeah, and so I guess, she laid the foundation for that was okay and you should strive to be that. I think my background along the years is I've had a lot of people tell me that I couldn't do something, and I'm like, "Hold my beer, I'm gonna do it."
Mm, rising to the
And
challenge, huh?
that is at the heart. If you tell me I can't do something, then I'm gonna go after it, but I'm still gonna beat myself up and say it's not good enough.
So,
And
do you get paralysis from like perfection? Are you able to ship, deliver? Like, tell me what that looks like before you get something across the finish line.
I actually don't have paralysis at all. In fact, I'm probably on the polar opposite.
Mm.
I'm the person that refuses to give up no matter how stupid I look. I don't
That's
care.
a superpower, man.
That's a superpower. I don't care.
Yeah.
I will just keep going at it and going at it and going at it. But in the middle of it, I'm like this self-talk of like, what are you doing? Like, you don't know what you're doing here. Why are you doing this? But in the end, I'm like, yeah, I did that.
So they say there's a book a gentleman wrote. I can't remember his name. It's something about. I mean, I always do this on the show. It's I'll put it in the links or whatnot. It's a book
Yeah.
about tennis and coaching, right? But he's written some other books, and he says the voice that we hear ourselves is voices that we grew up with, right? Those are the
Mm,
voices that push us.
mm.
So, do you see any of that, like, when you were, like, younger, somebody telling you, like, "Yeah, you can't do that," and you're like, "Oh, yeah, watch me. I'm gonna do a backflip off the monkey bars."
Yep. Yep. I I can distinctly remember that in younger years, elementary, middle school. I actually remember the people more that told me I wasn't plausible, that I was maybe hanging around the wrong crowd, and to be honest, I was. Like, if you knew me when I was younger and you knew me now, you would have probably been like, "They're not going to amount to much."
Mm,
And, you know, like, that has definitely left a mark. I think of the time I was in art school and I had a teacher pull me out in the middle of class with everybody because we were arguing about some sort of design, and she pulls me out in the hallway and she asked me what the hell I was doing in art school. And that was a teacher.
mm.
And you know what? I don't give a crap. I own a marketing agency now. That's what the hell I was doing in marketing school. But
So,
but they didn't believe in me, you know?
yeah, and that so do you have a conversation with those people? Do you confront them, or do you just pack it away as ammunition for your mission?
I think you just pack it away. Like, I don't have any kind of regrets for anybody in my life that didn't believe in me because it's not their job to believe in me. It's my
Mhm.
job to believe in me. And if I can't believe in myself, then nobody else will. So there's no reason for me to go back and say, "Hey, look at me now. This is what I did," because it's only their perception.
Yeah. So I know there's a lot of business owners, just people in general, right? We can beat ourselves up pretty intently. Um,
Mhm.
is this something that you continually, like, you have this, and I don't want to make it sound like you're schizophrenic, and I mean, obviously you went to psych school, but like you
It's okay. I'm totally bipolar. It's fine.
but like there's this voice, right? Like, is this
Yeah.
something like you're like before you get on this podcast, is that something you're like, I don't want to do that podcast, but you literally like have to push through it? Like, where is it present most?
I want to normalize mental illness and what
Mm,
we call it. I want people to understand that for years, mental illness has gotten like this really bad rap, but there are some very high functioning people and successful people that that are functioning bipolar, are functioning, high anxiety, depression. Like they're not, they're living at different levels, and that's what makes them high functioning. And so I'm not afraid to admit that I have really bad anxiety. I freak out about things that I don't need to freak out about, but that's what makes me good too,
mm,
because I can live through the ups and downs and keep going. So I
yeah,
want to normalize it. Like it's fine. Talk about it.
yeah.
We're
Is
we're not as happy as we wanna say we are. We put this out on social media, like, if you looked at my life on social media, like, "Man, she's got it all together," but if you sat in my head for a couple hours, you'd be like, "Man."
that's a good point. Like that's I've always had that issue with social media, the whole look at me exhibitionism.
Mhm.
And there's a flip side to that too, because there's some people that are just like down on social media all the time. And then you meet
Yeah.
them in person and you're like, dude, this isn't like your diary. Like you don't have to put all that really sad stuff out there all the time. But
Yeah.
and now mental illness has become like even the NFL is behind it. Like everybody's, continually talking about it. The one thing though that I haven't gotten over is that when somebody freaks out or has a mental breakdown, I don't think we're used to that yet. I think we would
Mm-mm.
judge that person, and if they have like, I don't, do they even still call it a nervous breakdown? I don't even know. My mom always threatened us. I'm having a nervous breakdown. Leave
Yeah.
me alone. But like
Mm,
like that type of thing, when somebody does that in the workplace, like, yeah, like to me, it just seems as if we don't accept that yet, as if we would it being somebody overweight or whatever other disability they might have.
yeah, we give up on that person, and I have
Exactly.
a
Well said.
personal story for that. Like, when I was at that high-ranking position, I would say I had close to a mental breakdown, and at the time, the company just said, "Well, we're done." And, that was my exit out of there, like, but I had that mental breakdown because of the demands and what they were putting on me, and I knew what we were doing was not right, and I was standing up for that. So that mental breakdown paid off, but I caution us as employers to recognize when somebody's breaking down and don't give up on them.
How do you do check-ins for that? So that's something that now being remote, and I believe you've always been remote.
Yep.
Like how do you check in with people to just say like, hey, what's going on?
So I have a weekly one-on-one with every team member, and when I have these one-on-ones, half of it is what's going on, with your life, and I'm talking about what's going on with my life, and they're talking about what's going on with their life. And when I want to dig in, and when someone's not performing, let's say in a one-on-one, I don't start off with, "Here's everything you're doing wrong." I start off with, "Well, I noticed this. Can you tell me what's going on?" Give them the opportunity to maybe tell you that something else is going on that you just don't know that's going on.
Hmm. Give them the space.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I have an individual that works for me right now, and we joke, but this is his fourth time that he's worked for me. I've had to let him go twice. He's quit on me twice. But we both have grown so much stronger because we understood at the time it just wasn't a good fit, but we came back to each other.
Reminds me of a childhood friend I had. We've literally known each other since we were 3 years old, and we just always would get in fights, like little kid elementary
Yep.
school fights. And, he would tell, like, "Yeah, we've gotten in 9 fights," like, he counted, and I would say, "I won all of those," right? And I remember he would say, "No." He's like, "You won 8, we tied once." It was just this little thing that we always had. But in that, it sounds like that. So you have somebody that's come on and then they've left and so on and so forth. And like my friend, do you think that builds like more stickiness, loyalty because you have this personal connection and you're really actually getting in someone's world and showing that you care about them?
Yeah, because I can push this individual further because we know each other better, and he will tell me that I love working for you because you consistently push me, but I understand him better. I think at the crux, if you don't know your people and you don't know what their hot buttons are, then you're not probably leading with your best foot forward. And it might be easier for me because I have a degree in psychology. So I understand the psychology of why people do stuff. But I think that helps build better teams when you understand that psychology.
So when you were at your last job and you found your breaking point, right? Was somebody pushing you and they just didn't know they were pushing too hard?
Um, yes, but I think that person knew how hard they were pushing. They just didn't care because we were at a place where the highest level only cared about the numbers and not the people. You were completely replaceable. I've hired and fired hundreds of people because of that position, and it's because they didn't care about people as individuals. They just wanted to hit their numbers.
How shitty was that for you? Because it seems like you have a deep care for people and then having to fire them. Like, what impact did
Oh,
that have on you?
that was a low point in my life. Like I gave that career everything I had. I worked there for 8 years, and I was working 80, 90 hours a week to
Oof.
produce the results I was producing. And at the end of the day, I have a mental breakdown because of the demands. And you said, "You're out?" Like, yeah, that was really hard for me to come back from and be like, you know what? I can do this or do that.
Yeah.
So it was challenging for sure.
How would you say, let's say that somebody has they're being pushed too hard. Like, is that all they need to verbalize? Like, tell me what your team members would tell you.
Say that again.
So when somebody is being pushed too hard, like how do you recommend employees, we have some of those that listen to the show, communicate to their higher ups? Like what should they say? Should they just say, "Hey, I need a mental wellness day"?
Yeah, I that's tough because I know as an employee, the moment that you tell your boss that you're struggling, there is that stigma with, "Oh crap, should we keep them? Should we not keep them?"
Mhm.
But I think that they need to tell their boss that they're struggling, because otherwise they're just going to make this decision to leave, and then you're not giving your employer the chance to change certain things to make it better, because maybe their levels here and your levels here, and that's okay. But if they don't know that you're struggling, then they can't help you make better choices or better decisions, I should say, with your time.
And that's
You've
the
got to
hardest
be
thing,
open.
man. Like, yeah, if you're in a situation where you feel overly vulnerable and unsafe and you can't communicate to your higher ups and then you just keep snowballing, digging yourself into a deeper hole, not getting back on your work, and then maybe you fib or lie about something and it just blows up into this huge situation. Oh man, like that the amount of pain that somebody feels there is it's insurmountable. It can drive you nuts.
Communication.
Yeah.
Can you be good at communicating? Because you're gonna carry that factor into your next job too. So just
Mm,
take that risk and tell your
mhm.
employer how you're struggling. And if they don't want to listen and they go the other direction, then that just made your decision that much easier. People
Yeah,
can't
and I think
help
the
what they don't
onus.
know.
Right, absolutely, and to that, I think the onus is on leadership, on the employers. They need to check in as much as possible, and make sure that, all right, hey, that everybody's okay, and when they're not, provide whatever assistance they can to help that person.
Those weekly check-ins, just like simple questions like, so how do you
Yeah.
feel things are going? Do you feel like it's challenging? Or is it challenging enough? Like just asking those questions will get the conversation going for sure.
And I've met some though that are in leadership, executive positions, owners that they can't talk themselves out of a paper bag. It's incredible. Like they have the worst communication skills, and it's like the saying goes, the head, the what was it? The fish stinks from the head down.
Yep.
So yeah, it starts at the top, and that's where I think that type of communication, maybe it's self-help, whatever it is, Tony Robbins or Landmark or any of these things. And to that,
Yeah.
have you done any of that, self-help training or communication courses
Oh
to
my
make
gosh.
yourself a better leader?
I can give you about 50 to 75 books sitting on the shelf over here.
Well, that's good though, man. That's strength and that's power. You recognize something and taking it in the direction you want to go. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get better at something without, learning how other people did it. And I recognized that early in my career. I mean, every place I've ever worked, I've always been in management except for one. And that's a story we could talk about too. But I learned the art of how to get people where I want them to go by great leadership.
Mm,
And it's not by whipping the chain.
hmm.
That's not gonna work. Like, you have to get into the mindset of what you want people to do. You have to convince them that what you want them to do is their decision, and you don't do that by whipping the chain. You don't do that by holding the carrot. You do that by understanding what their motives and drives are.
Mm. And
So,
where did you learn that? Is that one book? Is that multiple books? Some people would love some takeaways.
uh, multiple books, multiple leadership books, John Maxwell.
Okay.
I probably own every single book that he has. I think he really laid out a lot of different leadership skills. So I've followed him for a while. Starting with the Why is another book that I learned a lot from. Nowadays, I don't really listen or read books as much as I listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
Like I've constantly got a podcast going on in the background and, you know, that's where I've learned a lot of things is just by listening to what other people have to say.
Yeah. No, it's smart. I think, yeah. And where did you pick this up though? Because I know great salespeople, and it sounds like you went through I'm sure you had a fantastic sales training program at Yellow Book. Is that part of where you got this education habit, or did it start earlier than that?
I would say it started earlier than that. I've innately always been a learner. Like I like to learn and when I find a subject that I don't know something about, then I'm like this sponge where I will just grab everything I possibly can. Um I think getting a degree in psychology was super helpful. I always say it was more therapy than an actual college degree.
It's an expensive one, right? But hey,
Yeah, it
good
was.
therapy is expensive.
When I had to write a 100-page paper on my life story, and then, like, talk about it in a group setting, it was like, "Okay, well,
Yeah,
the
that can be
blinders are
cathartic.
off now."
Yeah. And
You
then you
know,
mentioned the Simon Sinek's why. So what's your purpose? What drives you?
helping other people realize that they can accomplish more than what they think they can accomplish.
Hmm.
That's my why, like, I think a lot of people don't see their own value, and maybe that's just self-help myself.
Yeah.
Like, I wanna teach other people that they can do that, and then, I need to teach myself too that I can do more than what I think I can do.
Yeah. Push yourself hard. I guess going back into another personal question. So you were the daughter of a mother that was the breadwinner. Um, do you have a daughter?
I do. I have 2, and, them growing up, even in, the '90s and 2000s, it was still not common for the woman to be the breadwinner. And I remember times that, the girls would come back from talking with teachers and they would be like, "Well, tell your mommy this and tell your mommy that." And they'd be like, "No, we need to tell daddy." And the teachers would look at them crazy and be like, "No, my mommy is the one that works." Like, I mean, not that daddy didn't work, but he worked like a minimized schedule because I was working 80, 90 hours a
Yeah.
week.
Good for you.
And
And that seems like that's way more common now.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But at the time, it wasn't,
Yeah.
and, at the time, I was working in this large corporation, and, I mean, I was a female, I was one of 2 out of, like, 500 of us at that level, and I was the youngest by a decade.
Mm.
So I really felt like I was disadvantaged, but I learned to play the game and I normalized it to where like I don't care, but I certainly got pushed down a lot and I got a lot of my ideas stolen and not taken seriously all the time, but I just had to keep going.
So so now being an agency owner, and being a woman, do you see there's any disadvantages for you, or do you think there's more advantages, or is it equal playing field?
I don't like to play that card and I don't make that, like, as a bad thing if people want to play that card, but if you're gonna work with me, it's because I'm good at what I do, not because I'm a woman.
Mm.
I don't feel like I'm disadvantaged because I make my choices. I make my decisions. If other people wanna make me a disadvantage or wanna take me differently or seriously as a woman, I can't control other people. I
Mm.
can only control myself. So I look at it differently and I might get backlash for that, but I'm not all about this. I deserve more because I'm a woman, or I've had it rough because I'm a woman. I chose my path and I chose the story to tell myself.
And I know I think you're probably still busier. Like at some point, I'm trying to send you clients, and you've had too many. You're like, no, I can't take them. So I know you're incredible at what you do, and everybody that's ever worked with you speaks very highly of you. So so you look at it, you want the merit. That's it. Like, all right, it's deserved or it's not based on your output, which that's gnarly.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even think when I was going through that stage at a corporate that I was disadvantaged. I only think about it looking back now that perhaps I was, but at the time, I guess, growing up in the environment that I did with my mom, it was normal to me. Like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't look around the room and say I'm the only woman, or I was probably more, being a decade younger than everybody than I was being a woman.
Right,
Now,
that's 10 years experience right there.
yeah, I mean, it was certainly the boys' club. I mean, there
Yeah.
were no females, or there was no feelings to be had. Like,
Mhm.
you went into the corner and you cried, and you didn't let anybody see you cry, and then you got to the boys' table and you talked the crap that you needed to talk, and I think that kind of made me who I am today. Sometimes I can be a little rough, but that's because I grew up with the boys.
This picture of you like playing poker. You got a cigar hanging out of your
Oh,
mouth.
I just played poker for like a couple weeks ago and I took 4th. Like, when I play poker, the boys do not want to play with me because they can't figure out what's going on in this
Oh,
head.
there's no read, huh? You got no tells?
Oh no. Like, I one time played poker in Vegas, and I literally went in there playing the dumb female role, and I played it to a T, like, "What does this mean? I don't know what this means." Like, I took advantage of
I've
that,
been at
like
tables where that's happening. I was like, "Is this real?" I mean, hey, if you got that as a, a capability, I say go for it.
Yeah, well, that's flipping the script to is being a woman a negative or a positive?
Yeah.
Depends on how you play the scene.
So, as far as agencies are concerned, like what do you where do you see them going with mental illness? Like how can we introduce that more, right? How can we make that more acceptable? And I mean, that's essentially the space that we speak in.
I think the moment you make yourself more vulnerable and talk about potentially your own issues, and all of us have some sort of what we would call mental illnesses, but maybe it's not mental illness, maybe it's just a challenge. The more you can talk about your own challenges, you can make it acceptable in an environment where other people will feel comfortable to talk about their challenges. Like,
Mm,
I don't have a problem, like, saying to my team, like, "Hey, guys, I'm sorry. I'm being crazy today. I'm being psychotic. It's cool, but, like, I am." Like, I don't
wow.
have a problem doing that.
Yeah, you label it that way.
Yeah, it makes it more vulnerable to where they feel it's okay. If you're
Mhm,
wanting them to start the conversation and you're not willing to give up your own vulnerabilities,
mhm,
it's not gonna happen. So
mm.
I think you have to be willing to give up and discuss your own insecurities first. And I know people out there be like, "Well, I can't do that as a leader. I can't talk about that I'm insecure or that like this or that." Yeah, you can. That makes you that much stronger when you talk about them and you recognize them. You're like, "Yeah, I'm not good at that, but we're gonna give it a whirl."
Yeah. No, yeah, you and we've had I've had the debate with another gentleman that was on there. It's the vulnerability thing for me because of my upbringing. That's really hard to let my team members know that. Like that's potentially a muscle that I could strengthen. And I think it's because I have that old school type of thinking.
It possibly could be a male versus female thing too. Like, I mean, females tend to, give their feelings out a little bit more than
I knew you were gonna
males.
say girls were better than boys. I know
No, they're not, but
Yeah. No, and yeah, I
they're
think it could be that, right? And I think those are social constructs that we have that I was probably raised with that are just there. It doesn't mean it's a right or wrong. I think it's like what works and it doesn't work. And it's maybe something that I could try on. I think you coming on here and saying the things that you have is super brave, and your approach is definitely something I believe you've honed with a lot of education and skill.
well, I think about, the group that we both belong to in this show, like
The
Digital
digital mastermind.
Mastermind. If we're not vulnerable in that group and we've normalized, I believe, in my opinion, like talking about what we're uncomfortable with or what we're not good at, then we're not going to get value out of that. But I'll tell you, like the first couple of years, I was a little challenged by that and that, ooh, these are my peers. I don't
Mhm.
want to tell them that I'm struggling with this or with that, but it's the honest truth.
Mhm. Yeah. And that builds a strong bond not only in our group, and I think everybody's super cool about it they're confidential about it. They let people talk about what's going on. Do you think it was just getting more comfortable, or you just got stronger and you're just able to voice essentially how you feel to others now?
It was probably a combination of when I started with Digital Masterminds, literally my first year, I was 3 months into, "I'm gonna own a marketing agency,"
Mhm.
to I'm 5 years later, and you know what? I don't give a crap now.
Mhm.
Like, I am who I am. I've accomplished what I've accomplished, and I've gotten this far for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, and so I feel more open to discussing, my vulnerabilities or my challenges, because if I don't discuss those, just like you're asking your employees, then nobody's going to open up to me. Now, are there going to be people that judge me? Sure, but those aren't my people, and I don't want to be around them.
Oh, well said. Be yourself or be by yourself. So what would you say to somebody that wants to start a business now or an agency now? They know that they have, some form of a mental illness. They could say it was diagnosed or whatnot. Like,
Yeah.
would you say still go for it? Could that be dangerous from the pressure? Like, what would you recommend? What is the path for that person? And I know you're not a mental health professional,
No,
but
but
from your own experience, sharing
I
from
go
your own.
back to the people who have actually been diagnosed. Oprah Winfrey. God, I'm gonna forget names, and afterwards I'm gonna want to put them in there later. But
Yeah.
there's so many people that have been diagnosed that, like, that's not an issue. Like,
Mhm.
1 in 3 people have some sort of mental health issues. So that shouldn't even be an issue. What I would say is, don't get overwhelmed with that end goal of running a successful marketing agency. Like, one step at a time. Like,
Mhm.
do this. All right, got that. All right, let's try this. All right, let's try that. And just keep moving forward, and don't look back, but also don't look too far forward.
Mm.
Like, that's where I think a lot of people fail with, like, big challenges or big, things that they want to accomplish, is they're looking all the way down at the end of the road and they're like, that's what I want. But they forgot about all the little steps. Just just put one step in front of the other. Like, eventually it adds up and you get down to the end of the road. Like,
It's a climb. You gotta enjoy. You gotta enjoy the
you gotta
climb. You gotta.
enjoy it. There you go. Like, don't like not enjoy where you're at right now, because that's hard too. Like, there's days I'm like, shoot, like, why did I lose that client?
Yeah, but I think those are the things that keep it interesting, right? Because if everything was just amazing, it becomes rote and boring. You need that organic drama, if you will, right? Of the hunt losing a client or just the dynamics of humans in general, right? That anytime there's a problem, it's just, there's humans involved. Like, I mean, of course there's going to be a problem. Um,
I think there was a meme I saw recently where, like, owning a business is like taking every setback with a smile on your face and just keep moving forward.
yeah, I
You're
like
always
that.
gonna have those setbacks.
Yeah,
Like, all right, well, that's cool.
you gotta take it.
Take
So,
another one.
is there anything we haven't covered today that you think the world should know?
Um, Go find yourself. Go do what makes you happy. Don't settle for anything less than what, you can do. Don't let somebody else tell you that you can't do something. You're the only one that can make that decision.
Hmm, I love that. Well said. Awesome. Jennifer, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, if you just Google Jennifer Denney, I think I'm all over the internet. I happen to do this digital marketing thing. But elevatormarketing.solutions is our website. So, yeah, or Google Jennifer Denney.
And then last question, any relation to the Denny's breakfast joint empire?
Yeah, bless America. No. It's
Awesome.
Denney.
Ah, there you go. A little bit of spelling if anybody was searching for it. Awesome. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Hope you enjoyed our episode. Please subscribe and review wherever you can. And if you would like to join the Digital Mastermind, go ahead and shoot me an email at jon@digitalmastermind.com or visit us at digitalmastermind.com. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye now.